Hey there, magical experimenters. Taylor Elwood here, and it's been a couple of weeks since I was last on here. Actually, it was a few weeks since I last recorded, and the reason why is because I decided I needed to take a break from, well, everything for a little while. Because, my life had gotten a little chaotic, to put it mildly. And I realized that part of it was that I needed to take a break from my magical practice as much as anything else because, as a friend pointed out to me, Taylor, you've been doing this magical practice of, this this intense alchemical work for the last 3 years, and on top of that, you piled on top of that this inner alchemical Taoist work that you've been learning. So now you've got like all of this stuff going on, and she was right. I mean, I hit a place where I hit a wall. I just had too much going on, and I ended up having to take a break because it was just too much. So that's why you haven't seen me here for the last few weeks, and it actually ties in directly to tonight's video because I thought I would share about that. So, I do think it's really important to sometimes take a break from your spiritual practice, especially if you're like me and you do stuff every single day. And don't get me wrong, I am totally all for doing daily work. But sometimes it is valuable to take a step back and get some perspective on that work so that you're not getting overwhelmed by it. And you don't want to do what I did, which is where you basically go running smack into a wall because you have too much going on and you don't know your own limits sometimes, which I sometimes don't. So, like in my case, I just had way too much going on a personal front and even professionally. I quit my job at the end of July, and instead of really kind of taking a step back from even that, I got so fixated on trying to get my latest book out that I was just like, I forced myself to push it out the door and get it done. The first couple weeks after, when really, in retrospect, I should have taken a bit of time off. And I think that this is really a good point to make, for anyone who practices magic or is a creative or anything else like that, that it is more than okay to take some time off. In fact, it's highly encouraged because when you're always working and always doing stuff and you don't take that break, it can get to a point where things can go way too overboard, and then you end up losing valuable creative time and time for other things, and that's really what ended up happening. I mean, I basically had an entire month where I really haven't gotten too much done that I wanted to get done. And now in the last week or so, that's changed. I've been working away on a nonfiction, non-magical project, which is coming to fruition pretty nicely. But you know, it 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 could have gotten done a lot sooner if I hadn't been distracted by everything that was going on in my life. And really, the value of this experience is that it really kind of taught me, like, look, there is a time and a place for taking a break. Like, you can be hardcore, do magic all the time, but occasionally it's a good idea to maybe just chill out a little bit and relax. And like in my case, a few weeks ago, I kind of hit my point where I was like, okay, I've got so much going on. I don't have time to do my daily spiritual work. So for the last few weeks, I really haven't done it. I only started up my qigong practice again last week, and that was good because I was ready to do that. And then I did a little bit of my spiritual practice and was given some advice by the spirits that was kind of like, get your house in order, get everything taken care of, and then you can start up again. So I basically have their permission to start up again this coming weekend. And it was really a good point to me because it's like, you can't always be working. You have to know when to take a break. And I think the biggest takeaway that I have from all of this is that occasionally I am going to give myself a week or two off on occasion from like doing everything or doing most everything, just to give myself that necessary perspective and grounding, so that I'm not so involved in the work and I'm not so involved in whatever else is going on that I'm not seeing the patterns that I need to see, and having the realizations that I need to have. Because when we get so caught up and fixated on whatever's going on in our lives that we're too close to it, that's when we lose objectivity, and it's when we lose that perspective that we need. And that's what happened in my case. And I ended up going through some life events that I really didn't need to go through, because I ended up getting everything worked out in the end. But a lot of that work could have been avoided, or done differently in a much healthier manner if I had just had my act together. But because I was so too close to some of the problems that I was too close to, and I hadn't given myself the necessary break, I didn't have that perspective. So it was really kind of a valuable experience, because it brought home the importance of the fact that, like, I really needed to get a little bit of perspective, get a little bit of a break, and not just push myself so hard. So in your own spiritual practice, what you want to be thinking about, like, is, what can you do to make better choices? Sometimes, when do you need to take a break from your spiritual practice? When do you need to take a day or two off and not do anything and just rest and regenerate and relax and recover? And I shared with my mentor recently, one of my mentors, I shared with him, that I was taking a break because of things that were going on. And he basically said, right now we're all going through this intense period of turbulence, in our lives. I mean, we've got at least in the U.S., we've got the upcoming election, and and then of course we've got COVID worldwide, and the pandemic, and at least here in Oregon right now and on the West Coast, we're dealing with wildfires. So that's been fun too. And all these different stressors can come in and impact us, and that's not even including the regular stressors that we have, such as relationships, family, friends, and things like that we all have to deal with and come to grips with. So, what I would tell you is take a break, recognize your own limits, and know when you need to stop and get some help, get some perspective. Know when to take a break from your spiritual practice. It doesn't make you less authentic or less anything. It makes you smart, because you realize that you're actually taking better care of yourself than you would be otherwise. On that note, I want to share a couple big announcements that I've been kind of holding off on, but I'm really excited about. The first announcement is that I am rebooting my Magical Experiments podcast. Only I'm doing it a bit differently. Instead of doing it on Blog Talk Radio, what I'm going to do is record it on Zoom. And then I am going to put that recording up. So next week, for example, I'm going to be doing my first podcast interview. And I'm going to be talking with Astrid, the Psychic Witch. And we're going to be talking about the future of magic. So I'm really psyched about that. And then the other big announcement is that in 2021, I am going to be launching a Magical Experiments online conference. So, you're going to get more details on that. I'm going to be a little vague about it right now. I'm just going to tell you that I am, starting to really dig into the research phase in order to pull this off. But this is something that I had promised to my community a few years ago, back when I called out the online, or back when I called out the pagan and magical conventions in the U.S. I called out the fact that, there were certain shady behaviors and business practices that I didn't agree with, and found, and that I didn't like the fact that there were only certain authors that were regularly given compensation of some type, while everyone else was expected to foot the bill, or that in general that you would see some type of nepotism or favoritism going on. Well, I basically got blacklisted for doing that, for calling that out, because I mean, people don't like it when their dirty laundry is aired, and they may not even think it's dirty laundry when in fact it is. And so one of the things it forced me to do is it forced me to really ultimately reinvent myself, which is why I've done what I do now with the Magical Experiments. But one of the other things that made me realize is that I was going to come up with my own convention. And so I'm really excited to share that with you. Again, I'm going to be vague on details for now, but I will share more. But in 2021, I'm going to be launching the first ever Magical Experiments online convention, and look forward to getting some news about that. All right, folks, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys a bit more regularly again. I'm really glad to be back. I've missed you all, and I can't wait to connect with you.